The last human city burned under alien fire as Captain Jake Morrison crawled through the rubble of what used to be New York. The Zephyrians had won after 3 long years of war, and now their massive ships filled the sky like metal clouds. Jake pressed his back against a broken wall and watched the enemy soldiers march past with their strange blue skin and 4 arms that moved too fast for human eyes to follow. The aliens had come from somewhere beyond the stars with weapons that could melt steel and ships bigger than mountains. They said humans were weak, but useful for hard work, because people could live in many different places and never gave up easily. Jake had fought them in space stations around Jupiter and in the deep tunnels under Mars colonies, but nothing had stopped their advance toward Earth. Now the Zephyrians were setting up processing centers in every major city. They herded people into long lines like cattle and used strange machines to scan their bodies and minds. High Commander Vextar stood on a platform above the crowds and spoke through a translator device that made his clicking sounds into human words. "You will work for the Empire now," he announced, while his soldiers pointed their energy weapons at the frightened humans below. "We have use for your kind in our colonies. You are strong enough to dig in deep mines and build our cities on distant worlds. Those who work hard will eat well. Those who cause trouble will not eat at all." Dr. Lisa Grant stood in one of those lines with thousands of other people. She had worked for NASA before the war and helped design the ships that tried to fight the aliens. Now she wore torn clothes and had dirt on her face like everyone else. The scanning machine hummed over her body and flashed green lights that hurt her eyes. A Zephyrian soldier looked at the results and marked something on a metal tablet. "Mining colony Kepler 442b, the alien said in broken English. "You go with Transport 7 tomorrow morning." Lisa nodded and tried not to show her fear. She had read about Kepler 442b in her research. It was a rocky planet with thin air and dangerous storms. The mining there would be hard work that killed many workers each year. But she was still alive, and that meant she could still fight somehow. On the other side of the city, Marine Sergeant Ryan Clark had already been processed and marked for the construction camps on Titan 7. He stood with other former soldiers in a holding area surrounded by force fields that shocked anyone who touched them. The aliens had put metal bands around their necks that made thinking clearly very difficult. Ryan felt like his mind was wrapped in thick fog, but he could still remember his training. The neural inhibitors were supposed to make humans calm and obedient, but Ryan noticed they worked differently on different people. When guards threatened to hurt a young woman in their group, an older man named Pete suddenly moved faster than the inhibitor should have allowed. Pete grabbed the alien's weapon before the guards could react, and for a moment, his eyes looked completely clear. The guards shot Pete with a stun weapon and dragged him away, but Ryan had seen something important. The inhibitors had a weakness. Strong emotions or extreme danger seemed to break through their control. He filed this information away in the part of his mind that the aliens could not reach. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison moved through the underground tunnels beneath the city with Maya Torres, who had worked for the CIA before the invasion. They had gathered 12 other survivors who refused to surrender to the processing centers. Maya had found these old subway tunnels that the aliens did not know about, and they were setting up a base there. The resistance groups on other worlds are already sending coded messages, Maya whispered as she adjusted their makeshift radio equipment. People in the asteroid belt colonies and the Mars settlements are organizing. The aliens think they have won, but they do not understand what humans do when we have nothing left to lose. Jake cleaned his stolen alien rifle and thought about the war they had just lost. The Zephyrians had better technology and more ships than humans could count, but they did not understand human nature. They saw people as simple animals that could be trained to work. They had no idea that humans became most dangerous when they were cornered and had no way to escape. The neural inhibitors were clever, but not perfect. The aliens trusted them too much, and that would be their mistake. Jake had already seen signs that the devices failed under stress. When people were scared enough or angry enough or desperate enough to save someone they loved, the inhibitors stopped working. He looked around at his small group of fighters hiding in the darkness below the occupied city. They had almost no weapons, and no ships, and no way to contact the human colonies scattered across the galaxy. But they had something the aliens did not expect. They had the stubborn human refusal to stay beaten. The Zephyrians thought the war was over. They thought humans would work quietly in their mines and factories and construction sites until they died. They were wrong about that. The real war was just beginning, and it would be fought by people who had learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to become something more dangerous than your enemies expected. Jake smiled in the darkness and started planning their first strike. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrians took control of Earth and shipped humans across the galaxy like cargo. Dr. Lisa Grant worked in the deep mines of Kepler 442b, where the air tasted like metal and the ground shook from constant drilling. The neural inhibitor around her neck made her thoughts slow and heavy most of the time, but she had started to notice something strange. During cave-ins or equipment failures, when workers faced immediate danger, the inhibitors seemed to stop working properly. Lisa watched as panicked humans moved faster and thought clearer than should have been possible with the alien devices controlling their minds. She began keeping careful notes hidden in her work clothes about when and why the inhibitors failed. The alien guard who watched her section was named Fixinol, and unlike most Zephyrians, he sometimes showed what looked like sympathy for human suffering. When a tunnel collapsed and trapped 3 workers, he helped dig them out instead of leaving them to die. When an old man collapsed from exhaustion, Fixinol gave him extra water rations. Lisa started talking to him during work breaks and learned that not all aliens supported enslaving other species. "Your people adapt quickly," Fixinol said one day as they watched human workers repair broken mining equipment with spare parts that should not have worked together. "The High Command thinks you are simple, but I see intelligence in how you solve problems. Perhaps they underestimate what humans can become." Lisa smiled and pretended the conversation was casual, but inside her mind was racing. If some aliens had doubts about the occupation, then humans might find allies in unexpected places. She filed this information away with her observations about the neural inhibitors. On the moon base, Titan 7 Sergeant Ryan Clark had organized the construction workers into informal squads based on his military training. The aliens thought they were just organizing work crews more efficiently, but Ryan was actually building a command structure for resistance operations. He worked with Kate Phillips, who had been an engineer before the war, and together they figured out ways to sabotage alien equipment without getting caught. Kate discovered that the construction tools could be modified to interfere with Zephyrian communications if someone knew which circuits to cross. She taught this trick to trusted workers, who began causing accidental communication blackouts during shift changes. The aliens blamed equipment failures and ordered human workers to fix the same problems they had secretly caused. Ryan noticed that the neural inhibitors worked poorly on people with military training or high stress tolerance. Former soldiers and police officers seemed to break through the mental fog more easily than civilians. He began identifying these people and assigning them to work details where they could observe alien patrol patterns and security procedures. Most important breakthrough came when Ryan discovered that the inhibitors completely failed when humans were protecting their children. A worker named Carlos attacked 3 alien guards with his bare hands when they threatened to hurt his young daughter. Carlos fought with impossible strength and speed before the guards finally overwhelmed him with stun weapons. They dragged him away for punishment, but Ryan had seen the truth. Love and protective instinct could override alien mind control back on Earth. Jake Morrison and Maya Torres had expanded their underground network to include 43 survivors hiding in tunnels, subway systems, and abandoned buildings throughout the occupied cities. Maya had established contact with resistance cells on 12 different worlds, using hijacked Zephyrian communication equipment. The aliens monitored most transmissions, but human hackers had learned to hide messages inside routine work reports. Danny Rodriguez had been an Olympic runner before the war, and now he worked as a courier, carrying coded messages between resistance cells. His athletic training helped him move through the city without being detected by alien patrols. He brought news that human workers on the agricultural world Proxima 3 had begun organizing, and that survivors in the asteroid mining stations were stockpiling weapons. Alex Hunter used his computer programming skills to hack into Zephyrian databases and steal information about guard schedules, supply shipments, and prisoner transfers. The aliens had advanced technology, but they had not changed their security codes since arriving at Earth. They were overconfident and careless because they thought humans were too primitive to threaten their systems. The aliens are making mistakes, Maya told Jake as they studied intercepted communications in their hidden command center. They treat this like a simple occupation, but humans are not simple. Every day our people learn more about their weaknesses, and every day the resistance grows stronger. Jake nodded and looked at the crude map they had drawn, showing resistance cells across the galaxy. Red marks indicated confirmed groups, while yellow marks showed possible locations where humans might be organizing. The map had more than 200 marks, and the number grew each week. High Commander Vextar received daily reports about minor disturbances in the labor camps, but he dismissed them as normal problems that happened when dealing with primitive species. Equipment failures were common on frontier worlds. Work slowdowns happened when inferior minds could not understand their duties. The few violent incidents could be handled with standard punishment procedures. Vextar stood in his command center, above the ruins of Washington, D.C., and watched human workers clear rubble from the streets below. They moved slowly and kept their eyes down like properly trained slaves. The neural inhibitors were working perfectly, and the human population was learning to accept their new place in the empire. The humans show no signs of organized resistance, reported his intelligence officer. They appear to have accepted their defeat and are adapting to their work assignments. Production quotas are being met in most facilities. Vextar felt satisfied with the progress. Humans were proving useful as laborers, just as the Empire had predicted. They were strong enough for heavy work and adaptable enough to survive in harsh environments on frontier worlds. Most importantly, they seemed to lack the intelligence and coordination needed for serious rebellion. But in the tunnels below his command center, Jake Morrison was planning their first major operation. The resistance had identified a weakness in the alien supply chain. Transport ships landed at regular intervals with equipment and supplies for the occupation forces. If those ships could be captured or destroyed, it would send a message that humans were not as defeated as the aliens believed. The real war was about to begin. Dr. Lisa Grant made the discovery that changed everything while working deep in the minds of Kepler 442b. She had been studying the neural inhibitors for months and noticed they malfunctioned when exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies. The mining equipment generated these frequencies accidentally during safety emergencies, but Lisa realized the effect could be created on purpose. She tested her theory by modifying a handheld scanner to emit the right frequency pattern. When she aimed it at another worker named Ben, the neural inhibitor around his neck sparked and went dark. Ben blinked several times, and for the first time in months, his eyes looked completely clear and alert. "I remember everything now," Ben whispered. In amazement, "My name is Ben Crawford, and I was a teacher in Chicago before they took us. The fog in my head is gone." "How did you do this?" Lisa quickly explained her discovery while keeping watch for alien guards. The electromagnetic pulse damaged the inhibitor circuits permanently, which meant the effect could not be reversed. She had found the key to freeing human minds from alien control. Now she needed to share this information with resistance cells. Across the galaxy, Fictional noticed that some workers in Lisa's section were acting differently. They moved with more purpose, and their work quality had improved dramatically. When he asked Lisa about it, she decided to take a calculated risk and told him the truth about what she had discovered. The alien guard listened carefully and then surprised her with his response. "I will help you," Fictional said after thinking for several minutes. "My species joined the Empire because we were conquered like yours, but some of us remember what freedom felt like. If you can free your people, maybe there is hope for mine as well." With Fictional's help, Lisa began secretly disabling inhibitors throughout the mining facility. Each freed worker became part of a growing network that prepared for organized resistance. They stockpiled tools that could be used as weapons and identified security weaknesses in the alien command structure. The liberation was spreading, but they had to move carefully to avoid detection. On Titan 7, Sergeant Ryan Clark received Lisa's discovery through the hidden communication network that Maya Torres had established. Kate Phillips immediately began building devices that could generate the electromagnetic pulses needed to disable the inhibitors. Within 2 weeks, they had freed more than 60 workers and begun planning a coordinated escape from the moon base. The breakthrough came during a shift change when alien guards were distracted by a false emergency that Kate had created with sabotaged equipment. Ryan led a team of freed humans in a surprise attack on the armory, while other teams secured the landing bay and communication center. The neural inhibitors had made the aliens overconfident about human compliance, and they were caught completely off guard. "Move fast and stay quiet," Ryan ordered as his team swept through the facility. "We need weapons transport and hostages before they can call for backup." The operation succeeded beyond their hopes. They captured the entire base, along with 3 transport ships and enough alien weapons to equip a small army. More importantly, they had proven that humans could defeat Zephyrian forces when fighting with clear minds and coordinated tactics. Kate Phillips used the base communication system to broadcast the success to resistance cells throughout the galaxy. Former Navy pilot Sam Carter was working on the agricultural world, Proxima 3, when he heard about the Titan 7 liberation. Sam had been planning his own rebellion, and the news gave him the confidence to act. He gathered 42 freed workers and led an assault on the main supply depot that provided food and equipment to 6 different Zephyrian colonies. The depot guards expected no resistance from mind-controlled human slaves and were overwhelmed within minutes. Sam's team captured advanced alien technology, including weapons vehicles and a detailed database of Empire military operations in the sector. They also freed 300 human workers and began converting the agricultural facility into a resistance stronghold. Jake Morrison coordinated these scattered victories from his hidden base beneath ruined New York. The communication network that Maya Torres had built was proving invaluable as resistance. Cells shared intelligence and coordinated their operations. Each successful attack provided weapons and equipment for the next operation, while proving to other humans that the aliens could be defeated. "We are not just fighting back anymore," Jake told his growing council of resistance leaders. "We are winning. Every liberated facility becomes a base for more operations, and every freed human becomes a fighter. The aliens wanted to use our adaptability against us, but now it works in our favor." Alex Hunter had hacked deep into Zephyrian computer systems and discovered crucial intelligence about their military structure. The Empire operated on strict hierarchical principles, with each commander reporting to higher authorities across vast distances. This system worked well for controlling stable territories, but made rapid response to unexpected threats nearly impossible. The aliens were also overextended across hundreds of conquered worlds. They had assumed that minimal forces would be sufficient to control enslaved populations, and had not prepared for organized resistance. Most importantly, their intelligence gathering was poor because they considered humans too primitive to pose a serious threat. Danny Rodriguez carried messages between Earth-based resistance cells and brought news that liberation operations were succeeding across multiple star systems. Human fighters had captured mining facilities in the Centauri system and destroyed alien supply lines near the Vega colonies. The resistance was becoming a galactic-wide rebellion that the Empire could no longer ignore. The first sign that aliens were taking the threat seriously came when High Commander Vextar ordered public executions of captured resistance fighters. He intended to terrorize humans into submission, but the brutal displays had the opposite effect. Instead of breaking human morale, the executions created martyrs and inspired more people to join the growing rebellion. Lisa Grant watched from the mines of Kepler 442b as news of the executions spread through the hidden communication network. She saw anger replace fear in the eyes of newly freed humans and knew that the aliens had made a fatal miscalculation. They thought brutality would stop human resistance, but they did not understand that humans became most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. They just made their biggest mistake. Fixinal observed as he watched human workers quietly prepare for their own liberation operation. Your species becomes stronger when pushed beyond their limits. The Empire has pushed too far, and now they will face consequences they cannot imagine. The scattered resistance cells were evolving into something much larger and more dangerous. They had weapons bases and allies among some alien species. Most importantly, they had learned that humans could match Zephyrian technology when fighting with freedom instead of chains. The Empire had awakened something they did not understand and could not control. The network was ready for the next phase of the war. The liberation of Kepler 442b began at dawn when Dr. Lisa Grant and her team of freed miners launched their coordinated assault on the alien command center, with Fixinal providing inside information about guard rotations and security protocols. The human fighters moved through the facility like shadows. The electromagnetic pulse devices that Kate Phillips had designed worked perfectly, and within hours, every human on the planet had their neural inhibitor disabled. Lisa felt a surge of pride as she watched former slaves take control of mining equipment and turn it into weapons. The massive drilling machines could punch through alien armor, and the Vi's industrial vehicles became assault platforms that the Zephyrians had never designed their defenses to handle. More importantly, the humans fought with a coordination and creativity that surprised their captors. "Your people learn faster than any species we have encountered," Fixinal told Lisa as they secured the communication center. The Empire underestimated human intelligence, and now they face warriors instead of workers. The victory on Kepler 442b provided the Resistance with crucial intelligence about Zephyrian military codes and ship vulnerabilities. Lisa transmitted this information to Jake Morrison's network on Earth, where Alex Hunter used it to hack into Empire databases across multiple systems. For the first time, humans had access to enemy fleet movements and strategic planning. Meanwhile, Captain Elena Price was leading the largest human uprising yet seen on the industrial world Vega Prime. Elena had been an Air Force officer before the war, and she applied military tactics to the rebellion with devastating effectiveness. The manufacturing facilities that had been producing equipment for the Empire were captured and converted to making human-designed weapons. Elena's engineers discovered that alien technology could be modified to work better for human physiology and fighting styles. They created lighter, more flexible armor and weapons that fired faster than the standard Zephyrian designs. Most importantly, they began mass-producing the electromagnetic pulse devices that could disable neural inhibitors from a distance. We are not just stealing their technology anymore, Elena announced to her growing army of freed humans. We are improving it and making it work against them. Every weapon we build makes us stronger, and every victory teaches us more about how to win this war. Sergeant Ryan Clark had transformed his captured moon base into a mobile command center, using the transport ships they had seized. His strike force now included more than 200 fighters equipped with captured alien weapons and vehicles. They moved from system to system, attacking Zephyrian supply convoys and liberating human workers wherever they found them. Kate Phillips had become the chief engineer for Ryan's fleet, and her innovations were spreading throughout the resistance network. She designed modification kits that could turn civilian equipment into military hardware and created communication devices that used frequencies the aliens could not monitor. Her technical expertise was turning desperate rebels into a professional fighting force. The most successful raid came when Ryan's fleet attacked a major supply convoy carrying weapons and equipment to 3 different colony worlds. The convoy escorts expected no resistance from primitive humans and were caught completely off guard when the transport ships they thought were carrying supplies instead disgorged heavily armed fighters. Hit them fast and take everything, Ryan ordered as his team swarmed over the alien ships. We need those weapons for the next operation, and we need their star charts to find more targets. The raid netted enough equipment to arm 500 more fighters and provided detailed maps of Zephyrian shipping routes throughout the sector. More importantly, the aliens were forced to acknowledge that they faced organized military opposition rather than random terrorism. High Command began requesting reinforcements from Core. Empire Worlds. Sam Carter had expanded his agricultural rebellion into a network of liberated farming worlds that supplied food and equipment to resistance cells across the galaxy. His pilots flew captured alien ships on dangerous missions to deliver supplies and evacuate human workers from high-risk facilities. The agricultural network became the logistical backbone that allowed scattered resistance groups to coordinate large-scale operations. We are building more than just a rebellion, Sam told his council of freed farmers and former pilots. We are creating the foundation for human independence. Every liberated world becomes stronger, and every success makes the next victory more likely. Jake Morrison watched the expanding rebellion from his command center beneath New York and marveled at how quickly it was growing. The communication network that Maya Torres had established now connected resistance cells on more than 50 worlds, and coordination between different groups was becoming seamless. What had started as desperate survivors hiding in tunnels had evolved into a galactic-wide military force. The most significant development was the capture of a complete Zephyrian communication hub by Danny Rodriguez and a team of former CIA operatives. The facility provided access to empire-wide intelligence, including fleet positions, troop movements, and strategic planning. For the first time, humans could predict alien operations instead of simply reacting to them. They still think we are primitive and disorganized, Maya told Jake as they studied intercepted Zephyrian communications. Their messages show they believe this is a temporary problem that can be solved with more troops and harsher punishments. They have no idea we are becoming something they never expected to face. High Commander Vextar was beginning to understand the scope of the problem, but his reports to the Empire High Council were being dismissed as exaggeration. The council members had never encountered serious resistance from a conquered species and could not believe that humans posed a genuine military threat. They authorized minimal reinforcements and ordered Vexstar to solve the problem with existing resources. The alien commander stood in his fortress, overlooking ruined Washington, D.C., and studied reports of human attacks across 12 star systems. The raids showed tactical sophistication that should have been impossible for enslaved workers. The humans were using captured equipment more effectively than many trained alien soldiers, and their coordination suggested advanced communication systems. "How did we miss this?" Vexstar asked his intelligence chief. "These humans were supposedly broken and compliant just months ago. Now they operate like a professional military force with resources and planning that should not exist." His subordinate shifted nervously and consulted her datapad. "The neural inhibitors appear to have been compromised, sir. We are receiving reports of device failures across multiple facilities. Without mental control, the humans have proven more dangerous than our initial assessments indicated." Vexstar realized that the Empire had made fundamental errors in understanding human nature and capabilities. They had assumed that superior technology would guarantee permanent control, but humans had proven adaptable enough to steal that technology and use it effectively. More dangerously, they had maintained their fighting spirit despite months of enslavement. The resistance was entering its most dangerous phase as scattered cells evolved into coordinated military units. Dr. Lisa Grant's discovery about disabling neural inhibitors had freed human minds across the galaxy, and the technological innovations of engineers like Kate Phillips were giving those minds the tools they needed to fight back effectively. What the aliens still did not understand was that humans became most creative and determined when fighting for their survival and freedom. The Empire had created the perfect conditions for transforming ordinary people into extraordinary warriors. The fire of rebellion was spreading faster than they could contain it. High Commander Vexstar stood before the holographic display showing human rebellion spreading across 18 star systems, and made the decision that would determine the fate of both species. The Empire High Council had finally realized that the human uprising posed a serious threat to their expansion plans, and had authorized the most extreme solution possible. Operation Final Cleansing will begin in 72 hours, Vexstar announced to his assembled fleet commanders. "We will systematically exterminate all human populations rather than continue dealing with this rebellion. The species has proven too dangerous to be allowed to survive." The largest Zephyrian fleet ever assembled began moving toward human territories. With enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds, they planned to start with the agricultural colonies that supplied the resistance network and work their way toward Earth. No human would be spared, and no facility would be left intact. Jake Morrison received warning of the approaching fleet through the captured communication hub that Danny Rodriguez had secured. The intelligence was both a blessing and a curse, because it gave the resistance time to prepare, but also revealed the hopeless scale of what they faced. The aliens had brought enough ships to destroy every human settlement in known space. "They mean to kill us all," Jake told the emergency council meeting that included resistance leaders from across the galaxy through encrypted communication links. "This is not about controlling workers anymore. I want to eliminate our entire species before we can become a greater threat." Dr. Lisa Grant joined the meeting from her liberated base on Kepler 442b, where she had been working on modifications to alien technology. Her technical team had made a breakthrough that might provide the resistance with a fighting chance against the overwhelming enemy fleet. "We have developed a virus that can disable Zephyrian neural networks," Lisa announced. "Their computer systems use biological components that are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. If we can introduce the virus into their communication grid, it will spread throughout their fleet and disable their coordination systems." Captain Elena Price reported from Vega Prime, where her manufacturing facilities were working around the clock to produce weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Zephyrian biology that captured prisoners had revealed. The aliens had faster reflexes than humans, but they were vulnerable to certain sonic frequencies that could disrupt their balance and motor control. We have sonic grenades that can incapacitate alien soldiers and electromagnetic mines that can disable their vehicles, Elena said. The weapons are effective, but we need time to produce enough quantities to arm our forces properly. Sergeant Ryan Clark's mobile fleet was positioned near the asteroid belt, where they had established hidden bases in abandoned mining facilities. His intelligence network had identified the route that the Zephyrian fleet would take, and he was preparing to launch hit-and-run attacks on their supply lines. We cannot match their firepower directly, but we can disrupt their logistics and force them to split their forces, Ryan explained. If we can capture or destroy their command ships, the fleet will lose coordination even without the virus. The Resistance faced its greatest test as seemingly impossible odds, forced them to combine all their innovations and tactical improvements into one desperate gambit. Jake Morrison coordinated the operation from his underground command center while resistance cells across the galaxy prepared for simultaneous attacks, designed to exploit every weakness they had discovered in the alien military structure. Plan was called Operation Phoenix because it required the resistance to risk everything on a single coordinated strike. If they failed, the human species would be extinct within weeks. If they succeeded, they would prove that even enslaved people could become powerful enough to threaten their oppressors. Carter led the first phase of the operation by coordinating attacks on Zephyrian supply depots throughout the agricultural sector. His pilots flew captured alien ships loaded with sonic weapons and electromagnetic devices that Elena Price's factories had produced. The attacks were timed to begin just as the main fleet entered human space. Remember that we are fighting for the survival of our entire species, Sam told his pilots as they prepared for their missions. Every supply depot we destroy weakens their ability to sustain the cleansing operation. Every hour we delay them gives our other teams more time to prepare. Maya Torres had positioned teams near major communication hubs throughout Zephyrian territory. When the signal came, these teams would simultaneously introduce Lisa Grant's virus into the alien communication network. The virus would spread automatically through their system and disable coordination between different fleet elements. Kate Phillips had modified the electromagnetic pulse devices to work on a much larger scale. These new weapons could disable multiple alien ships at once, but required precise timing and positioning to be effective. Her technical teams were hidden throughout the solar system, waiting for the enemy fleet to enter the trap. The breakthrough moment came when Danny Rodriguez's intelligence team captured a Zephyrian admiral during a raid on a forward command post. Under interrogation, the alien revealed that the Empire's rigid command structure had a critical weakness. If the fleet command ship was destroyed or disabled, the remaining vessels would be unable to coordinate their attacks effectively. Their entire fleet depends on orders from a single command vessel, Danny reported to Jake Morrison. If we can take out that ship, the cleansing operation will collapse into chaos. The problem is getting close enough to attack it. Jake studied the intelligence reports and tactical assessments that his teams had compiled. The Zephyrian fleet was massive and heavily defended, but it was also overconfident because the aliens still believed they were fighting primitive rebels, rather than a coordinated military force. That overconfidence could be turned into a weapon. The resistance would reveal its true strength for the first time by launching attacks that the aliens thought were impossible. Hidden bases would emerge from asteroid fields and abandoned facilities. Captured alien ships would turn on their former owners. Most importantly, the humans would demonstrate that months of oppression had transformed them into something much more dangerous than their captors had imagined. High Commander Vextar received the first reports of coordinated human attacks just as his fleet reached the outer edges of the solar system. Supply depots throughout the sector were being destroyed simultaneously, and communication networks were experiencing mysterious failures. The scale and timing of the attacks suggested a level of organization that should not have existed among enslaved workers. "How many ships do the humans have?" Vextar demanded as damage reports flooded his command center. "Unknown, sir," his intelligence officer replied. "We are detecting attacks by vessels using our own technology and communication codes. They appear to have captured and modified significant quantities of our equipment." Vextar realized that the Empire had fundamentally misunderstood what they were facing. The humans had not just survived their enslavement. They had used it as an opportunity to learn alien technology and develop new tactics. The species that had seemed primitive and broken had become a sophisticated enemy that was now cornering Via. Hunters. The final battle for human survival was about to begin. The moment of transformation came when Dr. Lisa Grant activated her neural virus and watched it spread through the Zephyrian communication network like wildfire. Across 18 star systems, alien command centers went dark as their biological computer components failed simultaneously. The Empire's rigid hierarchy collapsed in minutes as fleet commanders lost contact with their superiors and their subordinates. Jake Morrison coordinated the final assault from his command center as human forces emerged from hiding places throughout the galaxy. What the aliens had thought were scattered groups of desperate rebels revealed themselves to be a sophisticated military organization that had been planning this moment for months. Captured alien ships turned their weapons on former allies, while human fighters demonstrated tactics that the Empire had never encountered before. "All units execute Phoenix Protocol," Jake broadcast across the Resistance network. "Show them what humans become when we have nothing left to lose." Captain Elena Price led the assault on the regional command center orbiting Jupiter using weapons that her factories had mass-produced in secret. The sonic grenades disrupted alien coordination, while electromagnetic mines disabled their defensive systems. Her fighters moved through the facility with precision that shocked the defenders who still expected to face primitive opponents. The aliens discovered that humans had not just stolen their technology, but had improved it in ways they never considered. Human-modified weapons fired faster and hit harder than the original designs. Human tactics combined creativity with desperation in combinations that alien military doctrine had no answer for. Sergeant Ryan Clark's fleet struck the main Zephyrian supply convoy just as the enemy was preparing to begin their cleansing operation. The aliens had positioned their logistics vessels behind their main battle line because they never imagined that human forces could reach them. Ryan's ships emerged from asteroid fields where they had been hiding for weeks and attacked with weapons designed specifically to exploit Zephyrian weaknesses. "Target their command systems first," Ryan ordered as his fighters swarmed over the supply ships. "Disable their ability to coordinate and then capture everything we can use." Kate Phillips had positioned her electromagnetic pulse weapons throughout the solar system and triggered them as the Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. The massive devices she had built could disable multiple alien ships simultaneously, and they fired in sequence to create gaps in the enemy formation that human fighters could exploit. The technological innovations that had seemed impossible just months earlier were now turning the tide of battle. Humans who had been enslaved workers were outfighting professional alien soldiers, using tactics that combined desperation with intelligence in ways the Empire had never prepared for. Sam Carter's agricultural fleet provided the logistical support that allowed the scattered human forces to sustain their coordinated assault. His pilots flew dangerous supply runs through combat zones to deliver weapons and ammunition to resistance fighters, while evacuating civilians from worlds threatened by the cleansing operation. Maya Torres led the intelligence operation that captured High Commander Vextar himself during a raid on his flagship. The alien commander had never expected humans to penetrate his personal defenses and was taken prisoner along with detailed information about Empire military structures and weaknesses. "Your species made a fundamental error," Maya told the captured. "Commander, as human forces secured his ship. You thought enslaving us would make us weaker, but oppression taught us things about ourselves that we never knew before. You created the very enemy that is now defeating you." The turning point came when Danny Rodriguez's team successfully infiltrated and destroyed the main Zephyrian command vessel. The fleet coordination system that the aliens depended on completely collapsed, and individual ships found themselves fighting without orders or support. Human forces pressed their advantage and began capturing enemy vessels faster than they could be replaced. Lisa Grant watched from the liberated mining world of Kepler 442b as reports of human victories flooded. The communication network, the species that had been written off as primitive slaves, was systematically dismantling an interstellar empire using captured technology and tactics born from desperation. "We are not the same people they enslaved," Lisa told Fictional as they observed the battle through long-range sensors. "Months of oppression forced us to become something stronger and more dangerous than we ever were before. They wanted to use our adaptability, but instead they created their own worst nightmare." The Zephyrian Empire's regional control structure crumbled as human forces captured key facilities and communication hubs throughout occupied territory. The aliens who had seemed invincible just days earlier were now retreating from worlds they had controlled for months. More importantly, they were facing an enemy that understood their weaknesses better than they understood themselves. Jake Morrison emerged from the underground tunnels beneath New York as human fighters liberated Earth from alien occupation. The city that had been burning under enemy fire was now celebrating as resistance fighters drove the last Zephyrian forces from the planet. The transformation was complete. "We did more than survive," Jake announced to the crowds of freed humans gathering in the streets. "We proved that no species can be permanently enslaved if they refuse to give up hope." The aliens wanted workers, but they created warriors instead. High Commander Vextar sat in his prison cell aboard the captured flagship and tried to understand how the Empire had failed so completely. The humans had used every advantage that oppression had forced them to develop. They had learned alien technology while working as slaves. They had studied enemy tactics while serving as prisoners. Most dangerously, they had discovered reserves of strength and creativity that only emerged when survival was at stake. That the final phase of liberation began as human forces launched expeditions to search for other enslaved species throughout the galaxy. The tactics and technology that had freed humanity could be shared with any people willing to fight for their independence. The former slaves had become liberators who understood both the cost of freedom and the price of surrender. Captain Elena Price stood on the bridge of her captured Zephyrian battleship and studied star charts showing the locations of Empire colonies throughout the galaxy. Her manufacturing facilities were already producing liberation, equipment for species that had been conquered long before humans ever reached the stars. "We know what it feels like to be enslaved, and we know what it takes to break free," Elena told her crew of former prisoners, who now operated alien warships with skill that surprised even themselves. "Every species deserves the chance to discover what they can become when they refuse to stay beaten." The resistance had evolved into something that the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered before. They faced an enemy that grew stronger under pressure and became more dangerous when cornered. The aliens had enslaved a species without understanding that humans possessed the most dangerous trait possible in any potential enemy. They never knew when to quit. The galaxy would never be the same because the species that had been dismissed as primitive workers had proven that freedom was not something that could be permanently taken away. It could only be temporarily hidden until the right moment came to reclaim it with interest paid in full.